Hello everyone, welcome to Psychology at SDSU. I'd like to welcome all of the new transfers into SDSU. Wish we could be doing this in person, but hopefully that will come soon enough. Better safe than sorry at this point. My name is Dr. Sadler. I am the director of the Undergraduate Peer Advising Office for Psychology. So we are open both in summer and in fall. In summer, we're open Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 4, and fall, Monday through Thursday, 10 to 4. In a normal semester, we would be in person and we'd have drop-in advising, but we're virtual right now, just like everyone else. And so for virtual advising, we will have you set up an appointment. And I'll give you all the information, all the specifics about that at the end of this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, I should mention, I suppose, that we are a peer advising office. So the people that you normally would meet with would be people who are in the psychology major, right, who are just probably further along than you are at this point and hopefully can provide you with some tips about the major and the classes and things like that. All right, so I'm going to try to do a lot of things in this video module. I will try to keep it brief, but honestly, it could take a while. So I'm giving you an overview of the content so that way you can kind of go back and forwards as you might want to. There may be things that you're already very familiar with and that aren't needed for you in particular, but I want to try to get information out to as many people as possible because I won't get a chance to see you in person in fall. So with that in mind, I'll give you a quick overview of our services. So at SDSU, there is a two-tier system of advising. You have the Office of Advising and Evaluations, which most people call general advising, and that's where you'll go for GE and graduation requirements. For registration, you have the ambassadors, which it looks like, my understanding is you'll be meeting kind of with virtually online at a couple different points, and then they'll help you with registering on your orientation day. The Psychology Peer Advising Office is for everything psychology, and that's the only thing that we can help you with, but we can help you with it pretty comprehensively. So we'll help you plan courses, stay on track for the major requirements. We have different information that can help you prepare for your career goals, whether those be straight into the workforce after your degree or if you want to go into graduate school. We have resources on Blackboard or Canvas. It's not quite clear for fall which one will be on because the SDSU is transitioning, but we have a major homeroom for psychology. So you'll be able to find information, a lot of information there to hopefully help you along both while you're here and in preparing for your next step. Achieving the end goal, I just want to briefly encourage you to tailor your courses and your experiences while you're here to your goal. If you know that is what you want to do for the next step. If you don't, that's totally fine. You might want to be using your courses and experiences as a way to test out and kind of find a niche or something that you think you might want to do. I apologize, I have an old pup who is can't hear, can't see, so he's not sure where he is. So if you hear barks, that's what's going on. Okay, back to the 5 factors. So these are just things that we want to have on your radar to help you prepare to be the best applicant that you can be, again, whether going straight into the workforce or graduate school. So when you meet with us, we can give you more information on these different pieces. GPA, right, you want to just kind of keep in mind what your GPA is and how it aligns with what your goals are. The GRE, the Graduate Record Exam, we've got information about it and how to prepare, how long to leave yourself. Statement of purpose, you'll need to write a statement about yourself. Sometimes there's more than one. If you're going on to graduate school for workforce, these would be cover letters, letters of recommendation and or references, and then relevant experiences. So these are all things you'll want to do in service of getting to your end goal, and we have information on all of these available for you and can help you out with them when you meet with us. We want to encourage you to not only get high impact experiences. SDSU is big on kind of pushing, that might not have been the best way to say it, big on helping you get high impact experiences while you're here, and those can take many forms. You don't need to do everything. You just need to choose things kind of wisely to serve what you want to do next. So you might want to be focused on research. If you're going into a PhD program, you want research experience. If you want to go more into an applied kind of mental health, for example, setting, you'd be more interested in getting internships that work with particular populations like kids or people with mental health challenges, etc. We also have some 490s classes, so I'll tell you where those resources are later. But these classes, some allow you to get class credit while you're doing research or class credit while you're doing internships. You might want to pick up a minor if it helps, right, again, round out kind of your skill set for the next thing that you want to do. So we have lists of different minors that are complementary to psychology. We have handouts on clubs and honor societies that are psychology related. These can help you kind of find a home here at SDSU because our school and our major are both large. So these will maybe help you find groups of people who are interested in things that you are. And then normally study abroad would be something that we would talk about, but that is kind of on hold right now, at least for the next semester. Okay, so for the major requirements, we have 3 different degree paths at SDSU for psychology. The first 2 are very similar. The coursework is all the same, pretty much. So it's the liberal arts and sciences degree, or it's the applied arts and sciences degree. If you're a transfer and you were admitted to SDSU with your completed Associate of Arts for transfer or Associate degree for transfer, you will more than likely be on the second track. So as I mentioned, both of these are very similar, and I'll be talking about them pretty much the same. Outside of these 2 is the emphasis in industrial and organizational psychology. So it's not a separate major, but it's an emphasis within the psych major. So what that means is it's a set of courses that were kind of carved out of the larger major and are more specific for people who want to go into IO. Before I get into details, I need to warn you of a couple different things. So if you're an AAT student or an ADT student and you were entered into SDSU on that, you are on a contract with the state, which means if you change your major, for example, if you were to add the IO emphasis within psychology, and in some cases, if you add minors, they may break your contract. What that means is that SDSU is no longer beholden to get you out in 60 units. They won't kick you out. It's just that they're no longer obligated to get you out in 60 units. It could make changes to your requirements. So for example, it could impact whether you have a foreign language requirement if you were to break your contract. In any case, we just want to make sure that you know that there are ways that you can generate what's called a what if analysis. So that's within your degree evaluation. Milo. Within your degree evaluation, you can act as though you're another major, and it will then show you what your requirements would be if you were to switch. And general advising can also help you with that. If you're a California Promise student, we will be contacting you about how you can stay compliant, because there are a few different things you need to do each semester to make sure that you meet the requirements of the program. Okay, so to talk about the major requirements, I'll be going over sections of this major checklist. This checklist, it will be available to you on the Psych Department website. I'll show you the location later. I really suggest, if you have the ability, to download this and have it kind of handy so that you can use it to see where your own coursework from before might transfer in, because not all transcripts have been processed at this point. So for the prep for the major, it's 20 units, and it's the same across all of the degree paths with one exception that I will note. For each of these classes, you need to have achieved a C or better if it was a graded course, okay? Now, there is an exception to this. If you took any of these courses in spring of 2020 only, then SDSU will make an exception if you took them and got either credit or you got a pass. And I think there might even be one school that calls it satisfactory. But in any courses taken any other semester, you need to have a C or better, and you need to have an overall GPA of 2.5. And those requirements are to meet impaction so that you can become major status. The unfortunate thing that I get to tell everyone is that you will need to complete all of these courses before you can graduate with a degree. So even if you had an ADT before and not all of these courses were required, you will still need to complete them before you can earn the degree in psychology. I apologize. I wish that I weren't the one who usually has to break this to people. For in-person orientations, I always have chocolate or candy or something to kind of make it a little bit easier to swallow, if you will. But I want to assure you, that's my note in the bottom, it is still possible to get out in 60 units if you're on an ADT. It is still possible to find ways that do not extend your time here, even if you do have to make up even 9 hours of prep courses. So I want to assure you of that. For the IO emphasis, the only additional requirement is that you have to have a B or better in the stats requirement courses. So to go through very quickly, just on the stats requirement, it is a requirement that you have both a lab and lecture component to stats. Some of you may have had that combined into one class, in which case you would have already met the requirement. Some of you, though, may be coming from a school where they only had the lecture component of stats. If that's the case for you, then all you have to take is this 281 data analysis lab. Also want to note that for Bio 100, so it's a general biology course. I apologize for the dog. That's a general biology course. You only need to have the lecture for the major. Okay, for upper division major requirements, it is a 31-unit upper division major. They have to be all psychology units, meaning they have to come out of the psychology department. So they must all start PSY. We have the methods requirement. For the methods requirement, you have choices. And I always do this. I forget to say first that for the upper division major, you do need to average a 2.0 GPA to graduate. So it's a little more lenient than the prep coursework, just a 2.0. And that's actually a university requirement, not really a major requirement. All right, back to methods. So for methods, we have a couple of choices for you. Side 301 is a 4-unit course. It makes you a good consumer of research, and it's suitable for most students' needs, is what that really should say. In this, you will get all that you need in terms of methods for most graduate programs, unless you're planning to go to a PhD. And if you're planning to or hoping to get into a PhD program, we would probably suggest then for you Sci 410, in which you become a good producer of research. So it's more of the hands-on components. Sorry, just trying to let the dog know that I'm here. It's more of a hands-on component to research and more depth. One of the professors for it says, think of it as a part-time job and allow 20 hours a week for it. So it is very rigorous, but it's also a very good class. Like a lot of people talk about it being their favorite class, maybe because they put so many hours in. To get into these classes, there are several prerequisites. First, you need to be major status, and I'll show you how to check your degree eval later to see whether or not you're already major status. Junior status, which you should be more than likely. Eligible for an upper division writing course. So for transfers entering at this time, this is kind of waived essentially for you. Normally, you would have to be at a certain point in the graduation writing assessment requirement, or the GWAR. You would have had to take a placement exam, figure out where you are, if you need to take a lower division writing course, etc. For you all, though, for fall at any rate, you are deemed eligible. You can enroll straight in an upper division writing course to go ahead and satisfy the GWAR. Because you are then considered eligible for the upper division writing course by default for this semester, then if you are major status, you can sign up for methods. And finally, if you want to take 410, you need to have had a B or better in your stat course or courses, right? So if you took the stats lab and lecture separately, you would need a B or better in each of those pieces. Okay, continuing on to perhaps the more interesting part for many people of the upper division major is the breadth requirement. So here we want to have you get a spread kind of in the base of different subfields in psychology. So for each of these groups, you need to only pick one course. So it's 12 units for breadth requirement, but then you get to pick whichever you like within each of those groups. So for group 1, social or psych and culture, you could choose one or the other of those to satisfy the breadth requirement. And then group 2, we have a variety of courses. They're all kind of focused on the individual. Group 3 is kind of a mix of different developmental courses we have. It also has abnormal psychology and health psychology. Group 4 is more what people think of as like a neuroscience or a cognitive group. So there are 5 different selections there. So again, you only need one course from each of those groups. But if you're interested in more than one course, the first one you take will go toward the group, and then any others that you take will fall down and go under your additional units. So again, my apologies. I normally have this, my animation's down a little bit better. So I mentioned we could take one course per group. The second unfortunate fact I get to tell you is that if you took a course that is upper division for SDSU, and it was lower division elsewhere, we can't count it toward the major. So let me try to use an example to clarify that. So let's say you took social psychology at a community college or wherever you took it, and it was lower division. No lower division course can be applied to an upper division requirement. And so that's not just SDSU, that's most schools. So I apologize. Again, I wish I had candy or something to offer you to kind of make it a little bit easier. Again, we will help you get in and out in your desired timeline. So if you're on the ADT, you can still finish even if you need to take these courses, some of these courses, and we're not intending to. So after that are the additional units. They're like electives, but again, they have to be psychology department courses. Whether or not you need to take 14 or 15 additional units depends on which of the methods courses you take, right? Because we saw earlier, one is 4 units and one is 5 units. So for additional units, we have a lot of other courses that you haven't seen so far in the major checklist. You could take those, or like I said, you could take multiple courses from one of the groups, and then some would apply to your additional units. For the IO emphasis, again, that's carved out of the regular major, so you have a sequence of 5 courses, which I've indicated with asterisks. This would be on a separate major checklist that you will find on the department website. So one of the courses required is the methods requirement, or 301 or 410, so get the methods requirement, that goes towards your emphasis as well. For group 2, basically you have to take 319, which is the IO basic course. And then you have these 3 additional courses that you have to take, 320 and 321, which break out the topics from 319 and cover them in more detail. And then 370, which is testing and measurement. So you have to take those 3 courses. There's a note on here, be careful about the order you take them, etc. I'll let you read about that later. So because this is carved out of the major, then you only have 5 to 6 additional units of psychology courses, 300 or above, to take to reach your 31 units. Okay, so the language requirement is a function really of the degree, not of the major per se. So you need to check on your degree evaluation to see if you have a language requirement. If you do, it's 3rd semester equivalency, which means you don't have to take all 3 semesters at SDSU. If you have some prior experience with a language, you could jump in the 2nd semester, or you could jump straight into the 3rd semester and just take those courses, and as long as you pass them, you will have met the requirement. There are other ways to meet it too, high school coursework, if you had 4 years, etc. But this, since it's really a graduation requirement, then I will refer you to general advising if you have questions about the language requirement, or to the ambassadors during your registration process. All right, so now let's get on to the DARs and checking if and how your courses may have transferred in. So this will involve going through your degree evaluation. I imagine you've seen this in other modules. Normally students don't have their degree evaluation until they get to orientation, and it's a printed copy. So I'm not exactly sure when you'll have access to this online. It's supposed to be before your orientation day, but I don't know how long before. So I'll give you just some quick pieces about it. So it's called the Degree Evaluation and Web Portal. It also is referred to as the Degree Audit Report, or DARS for short. For the DARS overview, at the top I'm not going to cover too much. I just want to make sure that you check at the top to see that it reflects which path you're on. So if you're on the liberal psychology path or the applied arts, then it should just say psychology at the top. If you're on the IO emphasis, it should say IO emphasis at the top. So just check, make sure that it's reflecting the correct path for you. The next section down has kind of an overview or a clickable table of contents, if you will, for your DARs. So up here I want to note, if you were admitted under the associate degree for transfer, it will be indicated here, and this is the only place that it's indicated in your degree evaluation. The other thing that we'll spend time on during this video is a section for major requirements, right, prep and upper division, and that's just because there are some things that are kind of confusing if you don't know what you're looking at. So in terms of the major sections, the major requirements at the top, the first thing you want to notice is your catalog year. Yours will be 2020, and this just means that you are held to the requirements for the year that you entered. So if the psych department later decides to change any of its requirements, you're safe. You won't have to take anything additional. You just have to follow what the requirements were at the time that you entered. But if you were to, I don't know, change out of the major and then come back in, note that your major catalog year would change. So in that case, if other things had been added, then you might have to take them. The next section you may or may not have on your degree evaluation. If you have this section, that means you are not major status. So this section is the impacted program. As you can see in the first line there, it says you are currently a pre-major. So if it says this, what that means, it essentially limits your eligibility for some upper division psychology classes, but not all. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, so the prep for the major section, I just want to hit a couple highlights on this that can be confusing. I'm showing you an example for someone whose transcripts had been processed. They try to get as many transcripts processed for incoming transfer students as they can, but this year in particular, it's posing more challenges, so your transcripts may not have been processed yet, so we'll talk about what to do if they haven't. But if they have, I want to show you a couple of things about how things will appear on your degree eval. So overall, prep for the major, up here, we see that there's an X in a red box. That just means not all of the coursework has been satisfied yet. Anything with a green check mark has been satisfied. Here's why that gets confusing, because after the introductory requirement and the careers requirement, there's this strange pair of required courses. We don't know why it's like this, and I've tried to have it change. I don't get it. I don't know why it happened this way. But for some reason, they've put both Sci 260 and Sci 211 together under required courses. The reason this gets confusing for people is because they look and see, well, wait, it shows that I have a 260, but it's still an X. Why isn't it counting? It is counting 260, it's just until you have both 260 and 211, the X will remain. So once you complete both courses successfully, the C or better, then this will turn over to green. So please, if you're in the situation, don't worry, your 260 course or your 211 course is counted. You just need to finish the other one before this goes green. Another place that's confusing, or can be confusing is, that's what we just talked about in the stats requirement section. So here, because there are multiple ways to meet the stats requirement, it lists them kind of separately. So that's what throws people off. So this first way lists statistics as our 280 course. So that's the combined course that has both the lab and lecture in it. More often than not, for someone who's a transfer, what they may have had are one or two separate pieces of the stats requirement. So this person, for example, took a course at a community college that met the lecture component. So that's this 3 units. It's coming in under Soc 201 because we don't have any psych stats courses that are 3 units. So it comes in under some other kind of placeholder. If you have something like this here, then all you need to do is take 281, okay? So don't worry about 280 being up here. That's not applying to you. You're in this OR category, and so if you have a stats lecture, you just need to take 281. Okay, and we talked about each of those pieces. So for the upper division major, I won't spend a lot of time on here because for a lot of you, this will be pretty blank or not have courses filled in unless you're coming from a 4-year school and transferring over. So what I want to point out is here it notes, right, that you need your minimum 2.0 in the upper division for graduation. Later, or if you already have courses, then it will also show your major GPA. So this person, it doesn't show it yet because they don't have any units for the upper division. So you need 31 units. As you start taking units, it will show how many you've taken. Okay, so first one that it shows is the methods requirement. The next set that it shows is the breadth requirement. And so those all are pretty straightforward. What can be confusing is, or harder to read, is down here. This is all it says. Milo, come here, baby. Come here. Sorry, retrieving the dog. Okay, this is all that it says for the additional units. So it says electives to satisfy minimum units. It doesn't say the 14 to 15. It doesn't give you a countdown on them, so you have to keep track for yourself. And it says just select anything between Sci 300 and Sci 599. So as you start taking courses that will go toward the additional units, they'll start being listed in this area. Okay, now checking course transferability. So if your psych courses and transfer courses more broadly have not been processed, how do you know what to do to get ready to register? So we'll talk about that. Some of you may have had transcripts processed, but then in that it shows as though some of those courses are not coming in as equivalent to our courses. So that could happen, like we talked about before, if you took, let's say, a social course and it was lower division where you were, it would come in, it would show up in a very strange way. It would show up as whatever you took it at your school and then some weird collection of numbers and letters following Sci for the SDSU side. What that means is that they're counting the course for units, so the course would still go toward your 120 units to graduate, but it's not equivalent directly to any of our psych classes. And sometimes this will be correct, meaning that if it was lower division, a social course that was lower division elsewhere, we can't have it equal a psych upper division course here, but sometimes it might be incorrect. So let's say you took an equivalent prep course somewhere else, but you didn't get a C or higher, or if you took it for credit instead of a grade, again, except for spring 20 and except for AP exams, you have to have a letter grade for our prep for the major courses. So in that case, it wouldn't show as counting, right, toward your psych major. Again, the exception I mentioned, you could have done credit in spring of 2020 only, and that's for psychology. So just a warning, Some departments were taking credit in place of letter grades and some departments weren't. There were different rules for general education requirements, but for psychology, any class taken in spring 2020 that has an equivalent here, we will take credit or pass, or satisfactory, I think is the other term some use. So like I said, course almost always will apply toward your 120 units to graduate, just not for a specific course. Now, if you think that's wrong, or if your transcripts haven't been processed yet, what you can do is use SDSU's transfer admission planner to help figure out what your courses will more than likely come in as. And so I wanted to show you quickly what this looks like so that you have a sense of how to use it in case you need to. Because we can also help you with this, but for us to help you, you're going to have to send us your transcripts or something else, screenshots of your grades and all these other things. So what I'm hoping to do is give you enough skills that you can get going on this for yourself. So I'm going to use the example, let's say someone took Psych 210, which is a physio class at Palomar. I'm going to show you how you would check TAP to see if it would be equivalent to one of our courses. Okay, so this is a transfer admission planner. I'm going to advise you to always go down to this next to the last link. These links sound very similar to each other, but what we know is that for some reason they're not updated all at the same time. So this is the one that seems to be updated more quickly than others when there are changes, but even it is not updated, to the day. So what I'm going to do is I want to find an SDSU equivalent course. So under selecting college, first I want to select the first letter. So I'm looking for a course that came from Palomar. So once I select the first letter, right, then it narrows down my choices, and I'm going to choose Palomar. On the resulting screen, then I would look up the course, the particular course. So we were talking about looking up Psych, where did it go? Psych 210 was their physio course. So once I look up Psych 210, it shows me I've selected Psych 210 at Palomar, and now how does that equate, or does it equate to anything at SDSU? So what this is showing is that from the summer of 1990 to the summer of 2020, the Palomar course that we looked up is equivalent to Sci 260, as well as a general education requirement. Now, what's wrong with this picture? It says through summer 2020, it doesn't say through fall 2020, right? As long as you took your course up until summer of 2020, so somewhere between 1990 and summer of 2020, then that means it will come in. You can, if your transcripts haven't been processed, you can still safely assume you're fine. Now let's pretend for a second it had said summer of 2019 instead. That happens sometimes. Courses can be changed, but it can also be something else. So now that I've showed you this, let me go back to my PowerPoint so we can go on and I can give you these notes. So kind of in general guidelines as you're going through the TAP process, many local CCs have matching courses, right? They want to help you get to SDSU or to UCSD or wherever else. If an agreement has ended recently, so let's say it shows it ended in summer of 2019, it may be that it's actually still current and that it just hasn't been updated yet or hasn't shown on that website. And so it's fairly safe to believe that that course is going to come in, that agreement still holds, unless you know a course has changed substantially recently. So for example, our 211 course, you must have had Intro Cog beginning fall of 19. So if you took in fall of 19 or spring of 2020, a 211 equivalent, it needed to be Intro Cog, not Learning. But you may have taken Learning in an earlier semester and it would count. Another general note is if you took a developmental course before, it must have had the full lifespan in it in order for it to have a chance to be equivalent to 230. So TAP will help you figure out if there has been at any point an agreement, whether it's current or if there's been one in the past. So it may help you kind of feel safer about what you will have. So if you're in that position where your transcripts haven't been processed, you can use TAP to help assure yourself what is more than likely going to happen. I'd advise that you wait until your transcripts are processed, see how things come in, and then contact us if things don't come in as you expect. If you know, so if TAP shows there's never been any kind of equivalency between a course you took and one that's here, then you can contact us, and with a syllabus, we could look at it and review it to see if it will meet one of the requirements here. But again, that's only if there's not been an agreement at any time. Do we have to have the syllabus? Some other cases will ask you for it as well. And petitions can take a couple of weeks, but at least to be processed, but at least we would then be on the track to letting you know whether you would have an equivalent. Okay, I promise planning site courses won't take very long. I appreciate your patience as we get through all of this. So you know what you need. So that's important, is to know what you need in terms of registering. Sorry, let me get the dog again so he stops barking. Come here, Bubs. Oh, I know, baby. Come here. Okay, so first thing I'd advise you do is to kind of decide the number of units that you want to take for fall in each of different categories. So if you have prep units to take, you decide, for the major that is, decide how many of those you want to try to take in fall, how many GE units you want to take, etc. Now this is where you can actually make up for or not have to worry about if you have prep courses to take that you were not intending to take. That you will see when you get your degree eval that you will have wiggle room in other areas, that the prep courses will basically be out of those kind of other areas where electives can be and will not extend your stay. So typically for psychology units, we encourage students to take, for transfers, usually about 8 or 9 units, so typically 9 units a semester, in order to get you out in 4 terms. Now that is of course too much, right? So the 31 unit upper division major, so if you took 9 each semester, that is more than you need overall. So you can kind of use that as you will. You can make it so that your last semester has fewer psych courses or whatever. But we don't suggest taking more than 9, really. Before you go to register, I really suggest completing the major checklist, or at least looking at it and then making notes to yourself about what you need to complete, and note any courses that you might need to petition. And that's just to remind yourself that, like some of these courses I think I have, but I may not have. So you kind of just have that in your mind. In terms of particular psych courses, when you go to plan those out, we'd suggest you try to complete your major prep in fall or fall and spring, depending on course availability, so that you achieve major status by the end of this coming year. And the reason that's going to be important is because there are some of the upper division major requirements that you must be major status to take. So we'd rather you be in a position to do that, sooner than later. Questions that I often get: you can take the upper division major courses in pretty much any order as long as you meet the prerequisites. So that means you could start filling in your additional units before you take your breadth, etc. So you have flexibility there. We are going to suggest that you go to a handout on courses by career that will be on the website, the psych website, to help you select courses that you may want to take during your time at SDSU. And so, for example, if you want to be a rehabilitation counselor, we have a list of which courses those type of programs are usually interested in you having taken. If you're already major status, so if you look at your DARS and you do not have the impacted program section, then you could take methods and group 4, any group 4 course, now or during this upcoming year. The only reason that I suggest those to be earlier than later is because sometimes they can be harder to get into. So for example, our methods courses by this time are often waitlisted, but you can take them later. So I don't want you to be concerned if you can't get into methods this semester, but trying to get methods in group 4 out of the way this year just means that you have less to worry about in terms of scheduling your final year. We'll have you check availability. So after you've gone through those different pieces, then you'll check for availability on the class schedule. Right now, both fall 2020 and spring of 2021 are available. For fall, it's live, right? It shows you the number of open seats. And spring, of course, is not live yet, meaning that the number of seats aren't changing because no one's registering for it. Spring 2021 is our best plan for what we expect to be offering in spring. Usually it's very representative of what we offer, but I have to say, things are not usual right now. So you can use it to help you kind of plan for, this course that I wanted to take is full in fall. Will it be offered in spring? You've got a pretty good shot at whether it will by checking that schedule. Where we check it, so through Web Portal is how people usually look at the class schedule, but we don't have every one of the schedules on Web Portal yet. So future schedules are often available publicly before they go on Web Portal. So I have the URL for it here, but you could also just Google SDSU class schedule and you'll get to the public side, which will have spring 2021. The reason I'm going to show that to you real quick is because I want to point out prerequisites across our courses. So we have different types of prerequisites at SDSU. We have ones that are enforced by the computer, and those then, if you don't meet them, they'll block you before you enroll, at least at this stage of the game. So major status is noted by a ZM footnote. Student level is ZL footnote. For psychology, whenever we have a student level restriction, it's, I think, always junior status. I don't think we have any, no, we don't have any senior status restrictions. Let's see, other computer enforced, normally the GWAR progress that I mentioned, the whole graduation writing exam thing, but that's waived for fall, so you won't have to worry about that for fall anyway. I don't know what will happen in spring, if they'll extend that or not. If you're in the IO emphasis, your grades and stats requirements that B or higher will be enforced in terms of your degree progress. Okay, so that's the computer enforced ones. There are also professor enforced prerequisites, and for those, they won't block you. You won't be blocked from enrolling in a course if you don't meet them, but the psychology professors will check them. So the department strongly encourages psychology professors to make sure everyone has their prerequisites. So what I'm going to tell you is it's better not to enroll than to be dropped in the first week of classes and need to reset your entire schedule, right? When availability of courses is even harder to come by. So the professor enforced prereqs are usually prerequisite courses. So let's say if you need introductory or you need the 230 developmental as a prereq, the professor is going to check those. The professor will also check when you had to have had a certain grade in a prior class to be in their class. So for example, we talked about 410. You needed to have a B or better in stats. They will check that you do. And there will be a handout. We have a handout for the prerequisites for all of our courses that will be available on the website for you. But right now I just want to show you really quickly the public-facing planner or class schedule. So it always defaults to whatever the current semester is. So I'm going to first switch it to fall, and then you have to update it. Then I'm going to go under psych, just so you can see where these different kinds of prerequisites will show up, the different ones and how they're enforced. So I'm going to go down to 301 because it is one that has a bunch of prerequisites, as we talked about before. Again, what you're going to look for is ZM right here, and this is the major status one. So you must be major status to take 301, and ZL, you must be junior status. And I would know that by clicking on the course itself. It would then explain to me what footnotes in particular I needed to worry about. So up in here with the prereqs, it talks about completing, being eligible for the writing course, again, waived for you. You have to have had 101 and 280, etc. Right? So the reason I like to point this out is just as you're going through, you can, if you're not major status yet, you can easily go, oh, wait, ZM, I can't do that one. But if you want to check course prerequisites, and if you meet those, then you have to click on an individual course. All right, we are almost done. So I am sure I haven't answered all of your questions, so how can you get those answered? I will be available on your orientation day. So they're leaving a window of time open for Zoom meetings so that you can ask any questions that you have. You can also email us for the office, because we are not in the office, so you can't call us, but you can get to us by email. Some questions we can answer over email, and some will have you set up an appointment. The department website is where you will go. I've referenced that a few different times. It's where you go. It has the instructions to schedule an appointment, but it's also going to have, we're going to put up some of the things that I referenced during this video. We'll also put this video up actually, and separately the slides. So you'll have one where it's narrated and one that is just a set of slides if you want to go back and check any information later. Before I show you the website, I want to mention that we will have the major homeroom. Once you are into all of the systems, and I checked you weren't there yet as of today, you will be automatically placed in the homeroom. So we have even more information in the homeroom for you, a bunch more handouts and resources there. And I just want to mention, I know you haven't even registered for fall yet, but I'm going to tell you to be on the lookout for information on the major homeroom in October about the early registration that'll be in November for spring. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because the way that prerequisites are checked and things is much different during early registration than what you're going to experience right now. So, but I don't want to tell you about all that right now. You've got enough to worry about. So just planting a seed that later on you'll want to kind of check the homeroom to make sure you understand what is different about registration for your spring semester. Okay, but before we close, really quickly, I'm going to show you the department website and where you'll go. So this is the current department website. We're actually slated to have the new one go up in August. But for right now, what you want to do is go to the undergraduate tab and to the Psychology Peer Advising Center. If you go to information here, then it gives you information about our office hours, etc. Then it talks about topics that we can handle through appointments and topics that we can handle through email. So it gives you some of those up front. It also, in this middle section, gives you information about how to schedule an appointment with us. So you have to go through another system to set up an appointment. We've got instructions and a PowerPoint for you to make sure that you can follow how to set it up, because it has some details to it. Warns you about to use the Navigate system, you must have had your SDSU ID activated. If you don't, it gives you links for doing that. So if you need to set up an appointment with us or email us, there's information here for you to review. Okay, well that's it for me. Thank you again for your patience. This went so much longer than I had hoped, but I hope we got information to you that you need, and please feel free to contact us. We are here to help. We want to help you succeed, not only getting to the major, but also getting ready for your next step. So this is Dr. Sadler signing off, and I hope to meet you sometime in the future.